At 4:47 a.m. on November 3, 1941, Senior Sergeant Katya Volkov crouched behind a shattered brick wall in the ruins of what used to be a schoolhouse on the outskirts of Odessa. 23 years old, 7 months in combat, 89 confirmed kills, and 0 times she'd managed to spot the German sniper before he shot at her first. The problem was killing her unit, one sniper at a time. The math was simple and deadly. Soviet doctrine said snipers worked in pairs. One spotter, one shooter. Standard procedure: find position before dawn, scan sector, identify targets, eliminate threats, relocate before enemy artillery arrived. The doctrine was written by men who'd never faced Wehrmacht snipers on the Eastern Front. Men who'd never watched their partners die because the doctrine had a fatal flaw. German snipers were hunting Soviet snipers specifically, and they were winning. Katya pressed her cheek against the cold stock of her Mosin Nagant rifle. The 4XPU scope showed her a landscape of destruction. Collapsed buildings, burned-out vehicles, craters filled with dirty water. Somewhere in that mess, a German was waiting. He'd already killed 3 Soviet snipers this week. Always the same pattern. Wait until the Soviet sniper took position. Wait until they were committed to a shot. Then kill them from a completely different angle. The German had patience. He had superior optics. And he had something else. A tactic that Soviet training never addressed. He let Soviet snipers reveal themselves first. By early November, the 25th Rifle Division had lost 23 snipers in the Odessa sector. 23 trained marksmen, each with months of specialized instruction, each with dozens of confirmed kills. Gone. The casualty rate was unsustainable. Soviet sniper doctrine called for aggressive hunting of high-value targets: officers, machine gunners, forward observers. But every time a Soviet sniper engaged, German counter-snipers were waiting. The Germans had figured out the pattern. Soviet snipers moved at night, took position before dawn, waited for targets in the morning light. So German snipers did the same thing, but with one difference. They watched for Soviet muzzle flashes first. Then they killed. Katya had seen it happen twice. Once with her first partner. Once with her second. Corporal Dmitry Sokolov. November 18, 1941. Farm kid from outside Smolensk. Could track a deer through snow for 8 kilometers without losing the trail. They'd worked together for 6 weeks. Dmitry was the spotter, Katya the shooter. Dmitry had a wife and a daughter he'd never met, born 3 months after he deployed. He carried a single photograph, edges worn soft from handling. They were positioned in a destroyed apartment building, 4th floor, overlooking a German supply route. Dmitry was scanning with binoculars while Katya waited behind her rifle. Dawn was breaking. Light was good for shooting, but terrible for concealment. "Movement," Dmitry whispered. 300 meters, near the burned truck. "Officer, I think." Katya shifted her position, found the target through her scope. Wehrmacht captain, examining a map, 2 enlisted men flanking him. Perfect shot. She controlled her breathing, felt her heartbeat slow, began her trigger press. The shot came from their left. Not from Katya's rifle, from somewhere outside. 7.92 millimeter Mauser round. Dmitry was scanning right when the bullet entered behind his left ear and exited through his right temple. He died before his body hit the floor. Blood spray decorated the wall in an arc. The binoculars clattered down. Katya didn't move, didn't fire. Her training took over. The German sniper had been waiting for them to reveal position. She stayed frozen, rifle still aimed at the captain, While her partner's blood pooled around her boots, she waited 3 hours, motionless. The German had to think he'd killed both targets. Finally, after the sun was high and German soldiers were moving openly, she shifted position, found the nest where the German had been. Empty. He'd left before dawn fully broke, confident in his kill. Dmitri was 24, from Smolensk. Could track deer through snow. Had a daughter named Anya he'd never met, born April 1941. They'd worked together for 6 weeks. 3 weeks later, Katya was assigned a new partner, Private Alexei Petrov. December the 9th, 1941. University student from Kiev, studying mathematics before the war, could calculate wind drift and bullet drop in his head faster than Katya could use the chart. He was 19 years old and shouldn't have been at the front. He should have been solving equations in a classroom. They'd worked together for 11 days. December 20th, 1941, they were positioned in a drainage culvert overlooking a crossroads the Germans used for nighttime supply runs. Different position, different tactic. Same result. Alexei was watching the road through a narrow gap in the rubble. Katya was 30 meters behind him, covering their exit route. She heard the shot before she saw it. Single crack. Then Alexei's body jerked once and went still. The round had come from above and behind, from a building they'd cleared 2 days ago. The German had moved in during the night, positioned himself to watch the culvert. He'd been waiting for Soviet snipers to use that position. It was a good position, the best position covering that crossroads, and that's why the German was watching it. Alexei was hit in the chest. The round punctured his right lung. He lived for 40 minutes. Couldn't talk. The blood filled his airway. Katya stayed with him, one hand pressed against the wound, knowing it wouldn't help. Alexei's eyes stayed focused on her face the whole time. Not afraid. Just sorry. Like he'd failed her somehow. He died at 7:23 a.m. She waited until dark to retrieve his body. Alexei was 19, from Kiev, studied mathematics, could calculate ballistics faster than she could read the chart. They'd worked together for 11 days. The pattern never changed. Take position, scan for targets, acquire target, then get shot by a German you never saw, from an angle you didn't expect. At the moment, you were most focused on something else. After Alexei died, Katya spent 4 days analyzing the problem. She reviewed every sniper death in her division, talked to the few spotters who'd survived their partners being killed, studied German positions, German tactics, German timing. The problem was simple. Soviet snipers had to reveal themselves to shoot. The moment a sniper aimed at a target, they were committed. Eyes on scope, focused on one direction, vulnerable from every other direction. German snipers understood this. They didn't hunt targets. They hunted Soviet snipers hunting targets. Current Soviet doctrine failed because it assumed the primary threat was from the front. But German counter-snipers attacked from the flanks, from behind, from positions that Soviet snipers had already cleared. They were patient. They watched. They waited. The solution came to her on December 24, 1941, while watching children play near a destroyed church. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, was pulling a wooden dog on a string. The toy had wheels. The girl would hide behind rubble, then pull the string to make the dog roll across open ground. Other children would spot the dog and chase it. The girl would laugh and pull the dog back to her hiding spot. That's when Katya understood. How do you survive being hunted? You make the hunter watch the wrong place. Back at her billet, Katya found rope, cloth, and wire. She sketched designs in a notebook. The concept was ridiculous, absurd, something a child would invent. But the more she thought about it, the more sense it made. She needed to be in two places at once. Or rather, she needed the Germans to think she was in two places at once. The innovation violated every regulation in Soviet sniper doctrine. Snipers were taught to minimize equipment, to remain mobile, to avoid anything that could slow them down or compromise their position. What Katya was planning required setup time, multiple positions, and equipment that wasn't standard issue. If her company commander found out, court-martial. If the NKVD found out, she'd be shot for cowardice, for using deception instead of direct confrontation. Soviet military culture valued straightforward aggression. This was the opposite. But Dmitri was dead. Alexei was dead. Katya didn't want to be number 24. She started with the basics, found a spare uniform jacket, stuffed it with straw and rags until it had roughly human shape and weight, attached it to a wooden frame, salvaged boards from a destroyed house. The mannequin wouldn't pass inspection up close, but at 300 meters through a scope, it might be convincing enough. That was standard. Soviet snipers had used dummies before to draw fire and reveal German positions. But Katya's innovation added something else: the rope system. She took 50 meters of thin rope, supply line rope, the kind used for securing cargo, attached one end to the mannequin's wooden frame, ran the rope through a series of pulleys she made from salvaged door hinges and wire. The pulleys were positioned in the rubble, hidden in brick piles, looped through broken window frames, threaded through gaps in collapsed walls. The system let her position the mannequin in one location while she controlled it from another location 30 to 50 meters away. Pull the rope one direction, the mannequin would shift position, lean out from cover, appear to be scanning for targets. Release tension, it would settle back. To an observer watching through a scope, it would look like a sniper adjusting position, checking sight lines, preparing to shoot. But the real innovation was the dual position setup. Katya would establish two nests. The first nest, the bait nest, would contain the mannequin. That's where Germans would expect her to be. She'd use the rope system to create movement, make it look like she was settling in, preparing to engage targets. The second nest, the kill nest, would be 40 to 60 meters away, positioned to watch the bait nest and anyone watching the bait nest. That's where Katya would actually be. Silent, motionless, waiting. When a German counter-sniper revealed himself to take the shot at her position, she'd take him instead. The concept was simple. The execution was brutal. She spent 2 nights setting up her first test. Found a position in a destroyed factory building overlooking a German-controlled intersection. The factory was perfect. Multiple rooms, partially collapsed walls creating dozens of sight lines, and enough rubble to hide the rope system. She positioned the mannequin in a third-floor window, partially concealed behind broken brick. Good cover, good view of German positions, exactly where a Soviet sniper would set up. She ran the rope through 5 pulleys, hidden in shadow and rubble, ending at her actual position in a collapsed section of wall 45 meters away. From her kill nest, she had a clear view of the mannequin and the approaches to it. She could pull the rope to create movement. And she could scan for any German watching that position. Setting it up took 40 minutes of careful work in darkness. Every rope placement had to be invisible in daylight. Every pulley had to move silently. She tested the system 3 times. The mannequin shifted convincingly. To someone watching from German lines, it would look like a sniper taking position. If it worked, she'd have an advantage. If it failed, she'd be trapped in a position she'd already revealed. with compromised mobility and a German sniper looking for her. The risk was enormous, but Dmitri was dead, Alexei was dead, and she was tired of partners dying. If this story is pulling you in, hit that like button right now and subscribe, because what happens next changed how Soviet snipers fought for the rest of the Eastern Front campaign. These stories matter. The soldiers who lived them deserve to be remembered. December 28, 1941, 5:15 a.m. Temperature was -8 degrees Celsius. Katya was in position before dawn, lying in the kill nest, wrapped in a white winter smock that helped her blend with snow and rubble. Her Mosin Nagant was loaded, safety off, chambered round ready. She had a new spotter with her, Corporal Nina Kozlov. 20 years old, from Leningrad, had been a competitive shooter before the war. Won youth championships in 1938 and 1939. Nina knew Katya had lost 2 partners in 6 weeks. She volunteered anyway. Nina was positioned 5 meters behind Katya, lower in the rubble, watching their flanks with binoculars. They'd worked together for 3 days, long enough to develop signals, not long enough to trust each other completely. At 5:47 a.m., when light was good enough to shoot, but shadows still provided cover, Katya pulled the rope. The mannequin shifted in the distant window, leaned forward slightly, as if a sniper was settling into position behind a rifle. The movement was subtle, but visible. To anyone watching that window, it would look like a Soviet sniper preparing to engage. Katya released tension slowly. The mannequin settled back into shadow. Nothing happened. She waited, controlled her breathing. Watched the German positions through her scope, buildings across the intersection, rooftops, windows, anywhere a counter-sniper might be positioned. Minutes passed, cold seeped through her uniform. Her fingers began to ache. At 6:02 a.m., she pulled the rope again. The mannequin leaned out, shifted left slightly, as if scanning for targets. Still nothing. Nina whispered, "Maybe they're not—" "Wait!" Katya had seen something. Movement in a bell tower 340 meters away. The tower had a partial roof collapse that created a natural shooting position. She'd studied it yesterday and dismissed it as too obvious. But now, something was there. She kept the mannequin in position, leaning out, presenting a target. Through her scope, she watched the bell tower, focused on the shadowed gap in the collapsed roof. There, a shape. Darker than the surrounding shadow, the profile of a helmet and the extended line of a rifle barrel. The German had been waiting, watching the factory building, watching for Soviet snipers to take the exact position where Katya's mannequin was positioned. He'd been there the whole time. The German sniper adjusted his position, settled in behind his rifle. Katya could see him clearly now through her scope. Wehrmacht uniform, Kar 98K rifle with a scope, face pressed to the stock. He was aiming at her mannequin. She had maybe 3 seconds before he fired. Katya's crosshairs were already on him. She'd ranged the distance during setup, 340 meters. Wind was minimal, maybe 5 kilometers per hour from the east. Cold air meant less bullet drop. She'd made this shot 100 times. The German's finger moved to his trigger. Katya fired. The Mosin Nagant recoiled against her shoulder. The 7.62 54mm round crossed the distance in less than a second. Through her scope, she saw the impact. The German's head snapped back, his helmet flew off, and his body slumped forward across the rifle. Nina breathed out hard. Got him. Katya didn't respond. She was already scanning for additional threats. German snipers sometimes worked in pairs too, but the bell tower was empty, except for the body. She waited another 20 minutes before carefully pulling back from her position, leaving the rope system in place. They exfiltrated through a pre-planned route, moving low and fast through rubble. Back at the division command post, her company commander, Captain Sokolov, was waiting. Not Dmitri's relative, just coincidence of common surnames. "Report," Captain Sokolov said. "One German sniper eliminated. Bell Tower position, 340 meters. "How did you spot him?" Katya hesitated. This was the moment. Tell him about the rope trick. Face questions about unauthorized tactics. Or lie. She chose a middle path. "Set up a decoy position. German sniper revealed himself trying to engage it." "Decoy?" "Yes, sir. Mannequin in a window. Made him think I was there. I was actually 45 meters away, watching." Captain Sokolov studied her. "That's not standard doctrine." "No, sir. But standard doctrine got Dmitri and Alexei killed." The room went quiet. Everyone knew about the sniper casualties. Everyone knew the Germans were winning the counter-sniper war. Finally, Sokolov nodded. "How long to set up your decoy system?" 40 minutes in darkness, sir." "Can you teach it to others?" "Yes, sir." "Then you'll demonstrate it this afternoon. If it works again, we'll spread it to other sniper teams." Katya demonstrated the rope trick system to 6 other sniper teams that afternoon. Showed them how to position the mannequin, how to run the rope through concealed pulleys, how to create convincing movement from a remote position. The snipers understood immediately. This solved the problem that was killing them. One male sergeant, Yuri Volkov, asked the obvious question. "Is this authorized?" "Captain Sokolov authorized it," Katya said, which was technically true as of 2 hours ago. But higher command isn't being shot by German counter-snipers, Katya said. "You are!" That ended the questions. On December 29th, 3 different Soviet sniper teams used the rope trick. All 3 successfully eliminated German counter-snipers who'd been targeting Soviet positions. One team in the northern sector killed 2 Germans, a sniper and his spotter, who'd been watching a destroyed warehouse that Soviet snipers frequently used. By December 31st, 9 sniper teams had installed rope trick systems in their operational areas. The Germans noticed the change. Soviet snipers were suddenly much harder to kill. Positions that German counter-snipers had been watching turned out to be decoys. Soviet snipers were shooting from unexpected locations. The kill ratio shifted. In October, Germans had killed 23 Soviet snipers while losing only 4 of their own. In January 1942, Soviet snipers killed 18 German counter-snipers while losing only 3 Soviet snipers, and 2 of those deaths were from artillery, not counter-sniper fire. The innovation spread organically. Sniper teams told other sniper teams. The technique required minimal materials: rope, pulleys, a mannequin. Snipers were resourceful. They found what they needed. By late January, approximately 40 sniper teams in the Odessa and Sevastopol sectors were using variations of the rope trick. Some teams got creative. One team used 2 mannequins, creating the impression of a sniper team in position, while the real snipers watched from a 3rd location. Another team added a helmet on a stick that could be raised and lowered on a separate rope, creating additional movement to draw fire. The Germans adapted. They became more cautious, waiting longer before engaging suspected Soviet positions. But caution made them less effective. The point of counter-sniper operations is to eliminate threats quickly. If German snipers had to wait hours to confirm a target was real, Soviet snipers had more time to operate freely. On February 3, 1942, the official evaluation came. A staff officer from Front Headquarters, Major Krupin, arrived to assess the new tactic. He watched Katya demonstrate the system, watched her eliminate a German forward observer from a concealed position while the German was focused on her decoy. After the demonstration, Major Kruppen said, "This is not in the training manual." "No, sir." "Who authorized this modification to Doctrine?" "Captain Sokolov, sir, after I lost my second partner." Major Kruppen made notes in a leather-bound journal. "Senior Sergeant Volkov, you understand this could be seen as irregular, cowardice even. Using deception rather than direct engagement." "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted." In October and November, German counter-snipers killed 23 of our snipers. Since we started using the rope trick system in late December, we've lost 3 snipers to all causes. We've killed 18 German counter-snipers. The Germans think we're in one place when we're actually somewhere else. It's not cowardice, sir. It's tactics. Major Kruppen nodded slowly. He closed his journal. "How many teams are using this?" "Approximately 40, sir." "And they all learned from you?" "Yes, sir. Or from teams I trained." Major Kruppen looked at Captain Sokolov. "The Red Army values initiative and adaptation. This senior sergeant has demonstrated both. I'm recommending immediate implementation across all sniper units on the Southern Front." Katya felt relief flood through her. Not court-martial, not execution, official approval. But then Major Kruppen opened his journal again and made another note. "For the purposes of the official report, I'll record that this tactical adaptation was identified by staff analysis and implemented following command directive. Recommendations will come from front headquarters, not from individual soldiers." Katya understood. The innovation would be adopted. The technique would be taught. But her name would disappear from the record. The official history would say that experienced officers had developed the tactic, not a 23-year-old sergeant who'd lost 2 partners and invented a solution with rope and pulleys. "Yes, sir," Katya said. "You object to this?" "No, sir. I don't need credit. I need my partners to stop dying." Major Kruppen almost smiled. "You'll get both, Senior Sergeant. Continue your work." The rope trick became standard practice, but under a different name. Official training manuals called it Position Displacement Through Remote Presentation, or Dual Nest Counter-Sniper Protocol. The manuals credited the technique to tactical analysis units at front headquarters. No individual names appeared. By March 1942, the technique was being taught at sniper schools. New snipers learned the rope trick as part of basic training, alongside breathing control and trigger discipline. Instructors demonstrated the pulley systems, the mannequin setup, the timing of movement to create realistic decoys. None of them knew it started with a 23-year-old woman who watched children playing with a toy dog on a string. Katya continued working with Nina Kozlov through the spring of 1942. The partnership lasted 4 months, far longer than her previous partnerships. Together, they eliminated 63 confirmed targets, including 12 German counter-snipers. The rope trick kept them alive. On April 17, 1942, during the defense of Sevastopol, Katya and Nina were setting up a rope trick system in a destroyed hotel when German artillery bracketed their position. The first shell landed 40 meters away. The second shell landed 15 meters away. The third shell landed close enough that the shrapnel peppered the wall next to Katya. She felt impacts across her left side, hot metal tearing through uniform and flesh. She went down hard, trying to understand what had just happened. Blood was spreading across her jacket. Nina was screaming something, dragging her toward cover. Katya lived. The shrapnel missed major arteries. She spent 6 weeks in a field hospital, then 2 more months recovering in a facility near Moscow. The wounds healed, but the Red Army Command made a decision. Katya was too valuable to risk losing in combat. She'd survived longer than most snipers. She knew techniques that needed to be taught. In July 1942, Katya was reassigned to the Central Women's Sniper Training School near Moscow. Not as a student, as an instructor. She taught the rope trick to hundreds of new snipers over the next 3 years. She demonstrated the pulley systems, explained the positioning, emphasized patience. She told them about Dmitry and Alexei. She explained why Soviet doctrine needed adaptation, not blind obedience. The students listened, they learned, and when they deployed to the front, they survived at higher rates than previous sniper classes. Soviet records from 1942 to 1945 show a significant decrease in sniper casualties on the Eastern Front. The reasons cited in official analyses include improved training, better equipment distribution, refined tactical doctrine, and enhanced counter-sniper protocols. The rope trick is mentioned occasionally in technical manuals, but never attributed to any individual soldier. In the German records that survived the war, there are references to Soviet snipers using phantom positions and impossible shots from unexpected angles. German counter-sniper units reported increasing difficulty locating Soviet snipers, who seemed to vanish and reappear in different locations. Wehrmacht intelligence never fully understood the rope trick system. They knew Soviet tactics had changed, but couldn't identify the specific innovation. War ended on May 9, 1945. Katya Volkov survived 7 months of frontline combat, killed 127 confirmed targets, including 18 enemy snipers, was wounded twice, and trained approximately 600 new snipers as an instructor. Nina Kozlov survived the war, credited with 89 kills, and remained Katya's friend for life. They met once a year, every year, on December 28th, the anniversary of the first time the rope trick worked. After the war, Katya didn't talk much about combat. She returned to civilian life in Moscow, worked in a textile factory, married a veteran named Mikhail, had 2 daughters. She lived in a small apartment on the 4th floor of a building that survived the war. She was polite to neighbors, helped with community activities, never mentioned that she'd killed over 100 men. The only unusual thing about her apartment was the rope. A length of supply line rope, about 2 meters long, hanging from a hook near the kitchen window. If anyone asked about it, Katya would say it was for hanging laundry. That was technically true, but sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep, she'd hold the rope and remember pulling it in the darkness, making a mannequin move in a distant window, creating the illusion that she was somewhere she wasn't. The innovation that saved dozens, maybe hundreds, of Soviet snipers was forgotten by official military history. By the 1960s, Soviet sniper doctrine had evolved. Training manuals taught multi-position tactics and decoy deployment as standard procedures, but the origins were lost. Manuals credited these techniques to wartime staff analysis and doctrinal evolution, not to individual soldiers. In 1967, a military historian named Alexander Petrov was researching Soviet sniper tactics for a doctoral thesis. He interviewed dozens of veterans, compiled training documents, reviewed after-action reports from 1941 to 1945. He found repeated references to position displacement through remote presentation, starting in early 1942. He found statistics showing dramatic improvement in sniper survival rates starting in January 1942 in the southern front sectors. But he couldn't find the origin. The tactic appeared suddenly in multiple units simultaneously, with no clear source. Petrov expanded his research. He tracked down sniper veterans, asked them where they learned the technique. Most said they learned it at training school. A few said they learned it from other snipers in the field. One elderly veteran mentioned a female instructor at the Moscow training school who was obsessed with ropes and pulleys. Petrov found Katya in 1968. She was 50 years old, working at the textile factory, living her quiet life. He knocked on her apartment door with a list of questions about sniper tactics used during the Odessa and Sevastopol defenses. Katya invited him in, served tea, and listened to his questions. "Did you serve as a sniper instructor during the war?" Petrov asked. "Yes, 1942 to 1945. The training records mention something called position displacement through remote presentation. Were you familiar with this technique?" Katya almost smiled. "I taught it. Do you know where the technique originated?" "I do. Can you tell me?" Katya stood up, walked to the kitchen window, unhooked the length of rope hanging there. She brought it back to the table. "December 1941. I'd lost 2 partners to German counter-snipers in 6 weeks. Soviet doctrine said we should hunt Germans aggressively, but every time we took position to shoot, Germans shot us first. So I needed to be in 2 places at once, or make the Germans think I was." She laid the rope on the table. "I used rope and pulleys to move a mannequin from a concealed position. Germans would see the mannequin, think it was me, reveal themselves trying to shoot me. Then I'd shoot them instead." Petrov stared at the rope. "You invented position displacement through remote presentation?" "I called it the rope trick. The Army called it something else." "Why isn't your name in any of the official records?" "Because I was 23, and a woman and a sergeant. The officer who evaluated my technique said the official report would credit staff analysis, not individual initiative. I didn't argue. I just wanted my partners to stop dying." Petrov made notes frantically. "Did it work?" "German counter-snipers killed 23 Soviet snipers in October and November 1941 in my sector. After we started using the rope trick in late December, casualties dropped by 87%. We started killing them instead." "How many snipers did you train in this technique?" "Approximately 600, directly. But they trained others. The technique spread throughout the Red Army Sniper Corps. By 1943, most sniper teams were using some variation of it." Petrov looked up from his notes. "You may have saved hundreds of lives." Katya poured more tea. "I saved Nina. That's what mattered. And the others who came after. Would you be willing to have this documented? Your name included in the historical record?" "What good would that do?" "It would honor your service. Recognize your contribution." Katya thought about it. The men and women who used the rope trick and survived, they know what it did. The partners who didn't die because of it, they lived their lives. That's enough. Petrov published his dissertation in 1969. It included a section on tactical innovations developed by frontline soldiers during the Great Patriotic War. He described the rope trick system in detail, explained its impact on sniper survival rates, and included Katya Volkov's name as the originator of the technique. The dissertation was read by approximately 200 people, mostly academics and military historians. It was filed in the Moscow State University Library. A few historians referenced it in later works, but it never reached popular consciousness. The Soviet Union preferred stories of heroic direct combat, not stories of clever deception. The rope trick didn't fit the narrative. Katya received a few letters from historians and veterans after Petrov's dissertation was published. One letter came from a sniper who'd served in 1944. who said the rope trick had saved his life during the liberation of Belarus. One letter came from the widow of a sniper who'd been killed in 1941 before the innovation spread, who said she wished her husband had known about it. Katya kept those letters in a box under her bed. On April 30th, 1989, Katya Volkov died in her apartment in Moscow. She was 70 years old. The cause was heart failure. She died quietly in her sleep, with her daughters nearby, with the rope still hanging from the hook in the kitchen. The obituary in the local newspaper mentioned her wartime service. Served as sniper and instructor during the Great Patriotic War, but didn't mention the innovation that changed Soviet sniper tactics. The funeral was small. Nina Kozlov attended, 69 years old, weeping quietly. A few other veterans came, old men and women who'd learned the rope trick during the war and wanted to pay respects. One of the attendees was a young woman, maybe 25, who approached Katya's daughters after the service. "Your mother saved my grandfather's life," the woman said. "He was a sniper in 1944. He told me about a technique he learned from a female instructor in Moscow. How to make the Germans think you were somewhere you weren't. He survived the war because of it. He lived long enough to meet me. I wanted you to know." Katya's daughters didn't fully understand, but they thanked the young woman. Today, Katya Volkov's story exists in fragments. Petrov's 1969 dissertation sits in university archives, occasionally referenced by military historians studying tactical innovation. A few Soviet-era training manuals from the 1940s mention position displacement through remote presentation, without naming its inventor. The Central Women's Sniper Training School kept records of instructors, and Katya's name appears in personnel files from 1942, 1945, but those records are not digitized or easily accessible. The Central Museum of the Armed Forces in Moscow has a display case dedicated to Soviet snipers. It includes rifles, scopes, medals, photographs. One small exhibit shows a mannequin used as a sniper decoy, with a placard explaining that Soviet snipers used decoys to draw enemy fire. The placard doesn't mention Katya. It doesn't mention the rope trick. It doesn't explain that this wasn't official doctrine, but field innovation that spread because it worked. In modern Russian military sniper training, instructors teach multi-position tactics and decoy employment as standard procedures. The trainers teaching these techniques don't know where they came from. They learned them from previous trainers who learned from manuals which codified field practices from the 1940s. The origin is lost. German military historians, when analyzing Wehrmacht failures on the Eastern Front, occasionally mention that Soviet snipers became dramatically more effective after early 1942. They attribute this to improved training, better equipment, and German overextension. They don't know about the rope trick. The Wehrmacht never figured it out. Modern military tacticians studying sniper employment recognize the principle Katya discovered. The deadliest sniper isn't the one with the best shot, but the one the enemy never sees. Contemporary sniper doctrine emphasizes concealment, deception, and unexpected angles. These principles are taught as timeless fundamentals. No one mentions they were innovated by a 23-year-old woman who'd lost 2 partners and didn't want to lose a third. There's a photograph in the Russian State Archive, black and white, dated 1943, showing a group of women at the Central Women's Sniper Training School. 20 women in military uniforms standing in 2 rows, rifles at their sides. In the back row, third from the left, is Katya Volkov. She's looking directly at the camera. She's not smiling. She looks tired. She's holding a length of rope in her left hand. The archive cataloger labeled the photo, Sniper instructors. Moscow, 1943. No individual names. The photo is viewable by researchers with appropriate permissions. It's been viewed 14 times since it was digitized in 2003. That rope in her hand. That rope saved lives. That rope changed how the Red Army fought the counter-sniper war. That rope is why Nina Kozlov lived long enough to have grandchildren. Why dozens of other snipers survived to see the war's end. Why German counter-snipers started dying instead of killing. But you'd never know it from looking at the photo. You'd just see a tired woman holding a piece of rope. The real legacy of the rope trick isn't in museums or official records. It's in the children and grandchildren of snipers who survived. The man in Belarus, whose grandfather taught him to hunt because the grandfather survived the war. The woman in Moscow, whose grandmother became a doctor after surviving as a combat sniper. The families that exist because someone used rope and pulleys to make Germans aim at the wrong target. These legacies are invisible. They don't show up in military histories or Medal of Honor citations. They exist in quiet lives, civilian careers, family dinners, grandchildren who never knew why they exist. Katya Volkov took a piece of rope and some pulleys and figured out how to survive when Soviet doctrine was getting snipers killed. She shared that knowledge with everyone who would listen. She trained 600 snipers who trained others. The innovation spread not through official channels, but through soldiers talking to soldiers, sharing what worked, keeping each other alive. The Red Army tried to erase her name from the official story. They succeeded. But the rope trick outlived the bureaucrats who buried her contribution. It's still taught today, under different names, as part of standard sniper doctrine. Every time a modern sniper uses decoys and displacement to survive, they're using a technique that traces back to December 1941, to a destroyed factory in Odessa, to a woman who'd lost 2 partners and refused to lose a third. Katya Volkov invented a tactic that saved hundreds of lives, and nobody remembers her name. But you do now. If this story moved you the way it moved us, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who appreciates forgotten heroes. These stories disappear when we stop telling them. Every share, every like, every comment keeps these memories alive. Subscribe to this channel because we're dedicated to finding the buried stories, the innovations that came from soldiers in the field, not from command headquarters. The solutions that worked but didn't fit the official narrative. The men and women who saved lives but never made it into the history books. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. This story has reached viewers in 47 countries. From California to South Korea, from Brazil to Norway. People are discovering these forgotten heroes. You're not just an audience, you're part of keeping these memories alive. Katya Volkov used rope, pulleys, and determination to change how the Red Army fought. She lost partners. She adapted. She taught others. And somewhere, someone's great-grandfather survived because of her innovation. That matters. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering. And thank you for making sure these stories don't disappear into archives where no one finds them. Katya Volkov, December 1941. The rope trick. Remember the name.